Hi everyone, I'm Kevin and this is HFX by Bike, a YouTube channel all about getting around Halifax by bike. How to get to and from the various hospitals around the city has been one of the most frequent trip requests, and so I thought I'd put a dent in the pile. In today's video, I'll kick it off with a simple commute from Kencrest Apartments deep in the north end of the peninsula to Victoria General in the south end. As always, I'll be playing a game of +1 -2 along the way. Every time I encounter something that makes my trip safer or more convenient, I'll add a point. And every time I encounter something that makes it less safe or less convenient, I'll take away 2 points. You can keep track of how I think the ride is going by looking at the heads-up display in the bottom right-hand corner. Okay, to start off, I'm going to head up Novelty, which is a minor collector. Unfortunately, there's no bike infrastructure along this street. You kind of get used to it, but this 5-way intersection is going to be intimidating to a lot of people for the first few times they go through it. I'm going to take the Devonshire painted bike lanes down to get to Barrington and onto the Greenway. They're not protected lanes, but they do give me some dedicated space to move down the street. They cover a major roadway, they're decently wide, and the paving the whole way through is pretty smooth. You might notice some empty space to the right side of the lane, and that's because this lane has a door zone design. So there's cars parked on the right side of the lane, and sometimes you can even have their mirrors hang off in the lane itself, which is a bit of a safety issue. So if one of those doors opens, I'm in real trouble. There's a perfectly smooth transition onto the landing pad at the bottom of Devonshire. Also, technically Devonshire runs for a little bit over a kilometer, so it gets my usual 1 point per kilometer distance bonus. There's a push button facilitated crossing on Barrington, which is super useful because it's a really busy street. The downside is that the wait time for the crossing is pretty hilarious. I think it's like 90 seconds or 2 minutes or something like that, so you're going to be waiting for a while. But today, traffic actually just stopped on its own accord and let me cross, so cool, thanks. This is the Barrington Greenway. It's a fully traffic-separated multi-use path that runs along a major arterial, that being Barrington, and it's going to serve essentially as a highway getting to and from downtown. The intersection at North Street is covered by cross rides, so you're good to just bike straight across in a continuous path. Off to the right, there's the ramp that leads to the McDonald Bridge Bikeway, so that adds to the usefulness of this path. And on the upside, this entire thing is basically flat, so there's no hills, there's very few traffic interruptions, you can just proceed straight through, very efficient. And in case you missed it, the main entrance on this section is covered by a bollard in the center of the path, and so cars can't easily navigate their way onto it. This section of the Greenway is pretty nice to bike through. It's got lots of plants and a little bit of space separating you from Barrington, which can be nice. Also, it's nice flat paving the entire way across. This used to be where the Greenway would terminate, and you just get dumped into traffic and have to kind of find your own way into the downtown core. But now that the Cogswell District redevelopment has been happening, they've actually gone ahead and just, on an interim basis, expanded the Greenway so that you have a more or less direct connection to downtown. So I actually think that's great, even though it's interim and kind of sketchy in a few places. One of the limitations of this is that the lights heading up Cornwallis have actually been disabled from the Greenway perspective, and so in theory you should have to walk your bike up what is a city recommended bike path, so that's obviously not ideal. And if nothing else, the path is definitely wide enough to accommodate multiple cyclists and pedestrians. Car parked in the bike lane, that's 6160 for a first-time offense, but more importantly, it's a -2. I don't think it's worth taking any points off of, but this section is a bit weird. It's just a hodgepodge of kind of random construction materials, and that's just because this is kind of its interim form before it gets finalized. It's fine, I guess. Okay, so this part's a bit weird. The bidirectional path I'm on is ending, and at this point it's going to meet up with a lower Water Street protected bike lane, which is outbound only, so I can't proceed forward down this path. I do have to take the right to get onto Hollis Street, I'm not totally sure this is the right place to do it because there's no sign or pathfinding for me to know which way to go. And I think that's bad. I think there should be like some green paint, an arrow, or something that tells me where I should cross. The greenway ran for a total of about 2 kilometers, so here are the bonus points. This is the Hollis Street protected bike lane. It's going to give me a mostly traffic separated route for most of the rest of the way, and do so along a major road. A lot of the intersecting streets are one way, so you're not going to have to deal with a lot of conflict points with nearby traffic. Ideally, the transit stop would be closer to the road than the bike path, but this is a pretty good compromise given the space constraints. Also, the paving along the bike lane is pretty good. There's no major dents or potholes or anything. I kind of hate the Salter Street intersection. There's high enough pedestrian volume where it's pretty much constantly blocked, and I kind of wish the whole thing was just signalized formally. Okay, that's the end of the bike lane. It ran for about a kilometer, so it gets 1 bonus point. This is Morris Street. It's the least steep climb out of the downtown towards this part of the city. Unfortunately, there's no bike infrastructure here. At least the paving's good, I guess. This is one of the protected lanes on South Park Street. I'm only going to meet it for about a quarter of a block, so I'll just say cool, +1. The gate arm on South Park Street at the main entrance has a wide enough gap that you should be able to easily bike past it. Yes, you're allowed to do that. No, you're not paying for parking. Unfortunately, I don't think any of the other entrances have the same feature, so it's basically this or nothing to get in, although on the way out you have more options. And so, as we approach the hospital, you might be wondering, oh gosh, where will I park my bike during my shift or during my lab visit or whatever brought you to the hospital? And just out front of the Dixon Center, there is a ton of bike parking. It's covered and it's front of the main entrance, so you're gonna have a lot of people being able to kind of passively watch your bike. So it's not quite as good as an indoor bike room, but this is pretty good for longer term bike storage. The trip from the north end to Victoria General covered about 6.5 kilometers and took little more than 15 minutes, which is comparable to how long it would take by car during rush hour. I was able to spend most of the trip in some form of bike infrastructure and much of it separated from traffic. The biggest design issue I ran into was transitioning between the end of the interim extension of the Barrington Greenway to the Hollis protected bike lane, and as you can imagine, that would be stressful and heavier traffic. The next was the 5-way intersection in Devonshire near the beginning, but aside from that, the trip was pretty low stress and reasonably quick. Anyways, that's it for this week. If you have a trip that you'd like to see covered by the channel, just let me know. And as always, thanks for watching, and see you next time.